All right, good morning. Hi, everyone, at this beautiful conference. We had a beautiful keynote. I really enjoyed it. Um, and I like being first at the conference because I get to enjoy the rest of the conference or at the beginning of the conference. I like being the last because then I get to criticize all of the talks before me. And by criticize, I mean reflect on. But today I only have one talk to reflect on. And there was a lot of talk about iteration and incremental value, and it will be a theme that returns in this talk. Immediately with the first slides, because I do have a clicker that doesn't work. Yeah, okay. I do have a YouTube channel. It's called Next Increment, and it's about delivering value incrementally. And one of the things that have become a pattern recently is me talking about dealing with legacy systems. And because I care a lot about that, I have this talk. Let's get back to the question, though, how to sell a big refactor or rewrite to the business. And I'm going to tell you the answer right now. You don't. You can go. No, you don't. You don't go because there is a catch, right? You can do it anyway, but you don't want to get in trouble for it. This talk is more about how to do a refactor or rewrite in a way that is beneficial to the business. Okay? Because refactors and rewrites, especially rewrites, have a bad reputation. This is from Joel Spolsky. He wrote in one of his blogs, they did it by making the single worst strategic mistake that any software company can make. They decided to rewrite the code from scratch. He wrote this about Netscape. Now, little caveat, Spolsky was working for Microsoft. There might have been other factors for Netscape going bankrupt, but one of them was definitely that they did try to rewrite their software. Firefox is basically the rewritten Netscape. It's just that by the time that they got there, it became open source because the company wasn't there anymore. So that's an interesting statement, yet we still tend to want to rewrite software. And that's right. Why do we want to do that? So what I want to do in this talk is first I'm going to talk about why rewrites are a bad idea. At least I'm going to tell you the reasoning that most people use when they say that it's a bad idea. After that, I'm going to show you companies and products that have been rewritten and you didn't even notice. For most of them, you didn't even notice that they have been rewritten. And then I'm going to give you some takeaways. Okay, so let's start with why this is a bad idea. This is the design stamina hypothesis. This comes from Martin Fowler. And this is complete pseudoscience. I want to be very clear. This looks like a chart. It gives it the aura of science. This isn't science. This is what we feel as developers when we work with code, okay? So first curve I want to draw there is no design. If we have no design, then what we observe is our cumulative features first are getting really quickly there. Right? You hack away, it feels amazing. You have in a few minutes, you have something nice. I mean, these days you can just run a single command and it gives you an entire web page with, I don't know, with Next.js or whatever. It's really easy to get started. But then if you just hack away, what you get is that you slow down. And slowing down is not really good for us, right? Because then we start to hate our job, or at least most developers hate their job when they don't make progress. And then there is this ideal other curve that we would really like to have, where we take our time at the beginning. We are going to be slower, but we will design. We will come up with the right way to solve this problem. And then hopefully, over time, we will be even faster because we have all those abstraction layers in place. So new features are really easy to just put together from Lego pieces, right? So that would be the ideal case. Here is the problem. There is this design payoff line. That's when you have enough features that the design was worth it. If you want to build something smaller, you shouldn't design, because by this argument, you can hack away and you get there faster. If your product is bigger than that, then you should design. But how do you know that in like before? And here's the even nastier part. There is another line I want to show you, which is the minimum viable product. This is the product that you need to go to market and show people that your thing is actually worth investing into. Companies start by creating a minimum viable product, right? And when I look at this, this is what I see. This is my initial investment risk. How much money do I have to spend from my pocket as a business person to start my business and get someone to sign off on my project and give me a lot of money to hire more developers? So there is a huge incentive for hacking, especially at the beginning. Indeed, just the other day, I was talking to a potential client of mine, and they said, like, oh, we have, I see all these people talking about things, how to do them right, and we are nowhere near. And then I told him, like, you're two people. You don't need Scrum to work. It's just, you're not there yet. It's not that size. So that's basically one of the main drivers there, that when you are small and you want to prove yourself, that initial investment risk is huge. And most projects are going to be even more chaotic, because you build something, it doesn't prove itself, you delete half of the code, build something from the other half, and then you realize that you failed again, and you do this a couple of times. So by the time you actually get to investment, you have a legacy code base. So basically, that's how almost every code base becomes horrible. So the big key idea is that here, this is reasonable technical debt. This is what you take on so that you can get to financial stability. And that one is the problem. This is technical neglect. When you know that you have a technical debt problem, but you're not doing anything about it, or not enough. All right. So then what would be the answer? And the answer could be that we get to financial viability, we hack away until the investment, and then we stop and slow down and improve the design. That would be ideal, right? And you might ask, okay, is that the rewrite? That's where we actually start rewriting the software? And I mean, it could be, but not really, because what a rewrite looks like is much worse. It's more like a refactoring, right? It's when you start very consistently refactoring. And here I want to make a small change to this chart. Until now, I was using cumulative features. And now it will be important. This is how Fowler uses it. But it will be important that I change this to product attractiveness. Because I realized something a couple of years ago. And that this slowing down like that has a huge effect. And I'm going to show you what kind of brought me to this. So I have this event. It's called Lean Developer Experience. Previously, it was called Lean Poker, where we gather in teams, like developer teams, and each dev team gets a poker bot. And they get to innovate on that poker bot. And they can deploy at any time. And these poker bots are playing while they are developing. So imagine you come to this event, you get a poker bot that is just one line of code. It returns 0. It doesn't bat at all. It always falls. And now your bot is already playing, so you want to do something that makes it better than your competition, right? And you do that, and if you do something really small, even just one line of change, you are now ahead of your competition. And here is the really annoying part. What matters is not that your software is just a single line of code. It doesn't matter because you are already better, delivering more value than others. So your team is going to get ahead until someone else beats you. So what really matters isn't that if your software is better or not in absolute value. What matters is it better than your competition? Is it that delivering just that small extra value that means that people are going to switch to your product? Okay, and that's the real issue here, because imagine you get to investment and you start rewriting. You have that flat line there. And meanwhile, a competition that started after you, they even stole the idea because they already saw that you are successful. They start working and they get next to you, they cross the line, and now they are ahead of you. And now you are losing market share. Any responsible CTO will shut down the project right here. Right? Because now we are bleeding money at this point. We don't have time to rewrite. And then we are in an even worse position because our original code is even worse. We still need to work on it. And the beautiful new code will never get deployed. So that's the problem. All right. And we just lost time. So what is the implicit assumption here? Because this story is true. This is how companies can go bankrupt with a rewrite. But there were two assumptions here. And those two assumptions are important. Because if we realize what they are, then we can break the assumption and create a rewrite project that doesn't fit that mold, right? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through a couple of case studies, and I want you to think, what are the two things that are true of that aren't true of these projects, but were true in my explanation? So let's start with the first one. This is the story of a presentation software. It's called Prezi, and they had a problem. Their entire product was built on Adobe Flash. Who remembers Adobe Flash? Who still uses it? Wonder why? Now, this is of course a problem, right? They do need their cash cow, but the cash cow is on a planet that is about to explode, so, it's a problem. And they had to rewrite. They had no other option. So they went on and tried to rewrite it. They were doing crazy things. Like, I was talking to these folks at the time. They were compiling C code to JavaScript just to reproduce a font rendering and stuff like that. And it didn't work because HTML5 had a completely different philosophy than Flash. So in the end, what they did was this. They already had like a core new product that was kind of, they really struggled with making it compatible with the original one. And they came up with an interesting idea. They released Prezi for Business. Prezi for Business was a much worse product than Prezi at the time. But it didn't run on Flash, which meant that the businesses who were the first to ban Flash on their machines suddenly had something to replace Prezi. And they actually priced the worst product at a higher price point, which is kind of crazy, but they did that and it worked. And then over time, the Prezi business caught up with their core Prezi product. And it became Prezi Business became Prezi Next, and the old Prezi became Prezi Classic. And then they eventually completely killed off Prezi Classic. So basically, they rewrote their product by replacing it with a completely different product. And yet, they didn't go bankrupt. Indeed, it turned things around. Interesting. Why is that? Next story. Who here uses Visual Studio, Microsoft Visual Studio? Okay. And who uses VS Code? Okay. Isn't it odd that Microsoft has two IDEs? Why is that? Why would they do that? Well, it turns out that around the time when Microsoft came out with VS Code 1, there was a certain demographic of developers, web developers, who hated Microsoft passionately. They hated Microsoft passionately because they had the reputation of bloatware and Internet Explorer. There was a reason we hated them. So they were thinking, okay, how do we get these web dev folks on our turf? And what they did was they rewrote their IDE. They created a lightweight IDE with the language that web developers use, JavaScript, that kind of had fewer features than Visual Studio, but it had the right features. It was a pleasure to use compared to Visual Studio and compared to many other IDEs at the time. So they basically created a competition for themselves. Instead of letting some random startup create an editor that is better than, that is more attractive to developers than Visual Studio, they created their own competition. And over time, it became, honestly, as I have seen the hands in this room, VS Code is more popular right now. But it's interesting that they still keep around both products. Probably there is a good reason for that. Okay. And then there is, I already mentioned Lean Developer Experience. And I had a problem at some point, which became another one of these case studies. And my problem was that the original front end for Lean Developer Experience was something I wrote overnight. Like before the first event I ever organized, I had absolutely no front end yet. And I had like 24 hours left to do it. So I hacked it together, because that's what you do when you have 24 hours. And then because the first version was good enough, I didn't really change it much. I always just added one more hack, one more hack, one more hack. And after 101 more hacks, someone asked me, why do I need to refresh the screen to get new data? Like, why do I have to keep pressing F5 all through the event? And I was like, yeah, you got a point, but like, it would be really hard to implement this. Like, it would be almost impossible to implement this with the current system. So what did I do? I rewrote the entire front end from scratch. And by that time, this wasn't the one-nighter implementation by now. It was 10 years of cumulative technical debt that I had to like replace suddenly. So it wasn't another 24 hours to replace it. It was indeed a week. But the point was that I didn't rewrite the entire system. I just rewrote one page. The rest of the front end is still the same. This was the one page where reactivity mattered. So the way it works right now is that I have two front ends. One is the legacy front end, and I have this one page that is in an iframe. And that's fine. perfectly fine, because otherwise I would have to spend several months doing this, like rewriting the whole thing. But with this one, I now have a beautiful looking, actually it looks much better than the rest of the app, a beautiful looking dashboard that is reactive. And you actually, like when a team gets more points than the other, then they switch like this animates and all that. It's fantastic. So that was the third. And at this point, you might be asking, okay, so I get it. Then basically the idea is that we need to have a competition. We need to create our own competition. And the thing is, no, not necessarily. Sometimes you can have a rewrite that is not creating your own competition. And there I have a YouTube video about that. It's a longer video. And the story with this one, we were working with this. So we had this. Do you know Zapier? Who knows Zapier or N8N? Yeah. Okay. So this is, you have these boxes, and you can connect them into some kind of a program, and it's basically programming for people who think they cannot program, and then they need this visual representation, but in the end they are still creating code. It just doesn't look like code. Point is that we had this kind of product for marketers, and it was sending out emails and SMSs and stuff like that. And then one day we found out that for one of our customers, we sent out a special deal that was meant to be for VIPs, like 40% deal, to all of their customers except the VIP customers. They wanted to send it, which is a problem. So that was kind of expensive. That's the number over there. And then we looked at the problem and we realized our mistake. So originally this was a monolithic application. And at some point, we had the genius idea to move to microservices because we love microservices, right? Who loves microservices? Oh. So, yeah, that would have been a very different picture a couple of years ago, right? So we had this genius idea, and there was a problem. We kind of didn't re-architect well enough, and we kind of did a fire and forget instead of really checking if things happen. That caused this error. Point is that we had to change. We realized that we had to change every single integration that we had already implemented, because all of them, like the way we could solve our architectural problem was to rewrite every single integration. So what we did, we looked at which integrations are the most risky. Of course, that inverse filtering step, like the one that was meant to invert a filter, that was really important to fix quickly, right? Because it just caused a huge issue. And then there were others that we saw that it could cause an issue, but like it would have a minor effect, right? So we started with the risky stuff first. We did it one by one for several months. We were doing one integration at a time, and in the end, we replaced all of the integrations. This actually constituted the rewrite of the whole system there, like local system. And then after that, it was very stable, which is good. It was worth it. Another similar story, it was also my own team. One day, I was working on a different team, and one day my manager comes to me and says, "Hey, listen, you know we have this import feature, right? Yeah. So the thing is that we have a customer who has a daily import, and it's running for 25 hours." I said, 25 hours? Yeah. That's not a daily import. Yeah, it's a daily import on one day of the year. On the day of the DST change, of course. So we had to do something about that. And then we looked into the code and we saw that it was a pretty big code base. Because you see, users could configure this import and they could set the fields, how the fields are mapped, how they are then modified, types, and they even had these weird unique constraints that they could set, and it was a whole shebang, right? It was a really complex import system. And there was just no chance that we can fix this in a week. But the customer renewal contract renewal was coming up in a few weeks, so we had to move fast. So we did something weird. We simply hard-coded that user's ID or that customer's ID into the code and said, if this user do this. And then we took just that one setting. We even disabled changing the settings for the user. We took just that one setting and implemented a single SQL query to reproduce that behavior, that specific behavior. The import got down to a couple of seconds from 10 to 5 hours, which is huge improvement, right? Good news was that we kept the customer. Bad news was that we had a technical debt lingering around in our code base. But the good news was that the CEO was hyped. Oh my God, we can save so much money with this. Guys, continue this. Like, we want all the other customers have this fast import. And we were like, okay. I mean, yeah, how do I do that? Well, here's how we do that. We looked at all of the configurations. We figured out that there are already a couple of customers who have the exact same configuration. Marvelous. So now what we did, we replaced that if statement with, if the settings are these exactly, use the new import. Otherwise, use the old import. Now that works for a bunch of more customers. Yay. How do we move forward? Okay. But if we just implement this one single setting that they can change, like all these customers who now have this import, and if I allow this one setting change, now 70% of our customers have the new import. So what we did, we took that setting and implemented a query builder that didn't, like, we had the hard-coded query, but now we've changed that just one part of the query to match that setting. And now we had 70% of our customers using the new import and having their imports done in seconds. And then we did that one setting at a time. We got to about 80% of the settings and 99.9% of the customers. And then there were a few customers who were using these really weird settings that our product manager just looked at it and, guys, we need to delete these features. And we were like, okay, we can't delete it because these customers, but you know what? Let's leave it there, and we'll come back to it. Half a year later, turns out those few customers left anyway. So now we could delete it. And then we didn't have the old import at all. Great. And then similar story, again, going back to my little workshop, I made a mistake. At the time, I was really hyped about not just microservices, MongoDB. Who uses MongoDB? Hands up. Yeah, a lot fewer people somehow. And at the time, it was really good, and I also started using it. Here's the problem. I looked at my Heroku bill. Turns out, MongoDB is 3 times as expensive as SQL. I don't like paying. So I thought to myself, okay, let's rewrite this. But again, it's a 10-year-old application that I've worked on so much. How do I going to how I replace that? And Mongo and SQL, these are very incompatible databases. How do I migrate? I did it in 5 days. And the trick was just doing one collection at a time. That was one trick. And the other trick was using AI. And this is the part where AI comes in because, yeah, there's a bit of, like, AI can help us a lot here. But I need to speed up because I don't have much time left. So I will come back to the AI in a second. So takeaways. What is the implicit assumption? Any tips? Any ideas from the audience? What was the two things that were true in my original story, but not with these rewrites? Yeah. Yeah, that's one of them. We need to rewrite everything. We don't. We can rewrite just a part of things. Yeah. But actually, I'm going to phrase it in a slightly different way. But yeah, that's one of the ideas. Any other ideas? Yeah. Yeah, the effectiveness of or the attractiveness of the product doesn't drop. That's, yeah, exactly. That's the other thing. So during the rewrite, we don't deliver value to the business. That's one of the assumptions. This is what you said basically, that while we rewrite, we are not increasing the attractiveness of our product. We don't deliver value. That was one assumption. The other assumption, the rewrite is an all or nothing project. That was the other idea, right? So between the two of you, you got it. Never happened at any conference, so good job. So how do we sell the refactor? As I said, we don't. Instead, we sell the business value that we can create with the refactor. And if we look at the examples that we had, yeah, just another slide before that. Our highest priority is to satisfy the customers through early and continuous delivery of valuable software. This is the first principle of the Agile Manifesto, because everyone just remembers that this over that part. But the 12 principles, almost no one reads that. This is the first one and the most important one. This is what we want to aim for, to satisfy the customers through early and continuous delivery. So, going back to what is the two key strategies that I use with my clients to have them find good rewrite path. One is create your own competition. This is what Prezi did. This is VS Code. This is what I did with my own new front end. This is where you replace an entire or part of a product by creating a new little world where you are basically, it's an alternative to your existing, but it is geared towards a specific audience. Okay, that's the idea. Like, or it's geared towards a specific part of the system. That's one idea. The other idea that you can use is incremental replacement user value, where you just take one piece at a time and replace it while keeping the old system running. This is also called strangling fig pattern. You might know it as that. Okay, so there we have these two little strategies. And I actually have another video. This video has 58 views, which I don't understand why, so please go and watch it. And it's about this framework. I dig a little deeper into the column and the row. Okay, so and that was the really interesting. I was giving this exact same talk a couple of years ago, and then from the audience I had a question. Okay, we have these two things that you said, like incremental value and iterative development, but what about if we do it just one of the two? Like, what happens then? And I had enough of the case studies in my head immediately that I could answer it. So let's look at, like, we have on one axis we have no customer value and customer value, and the other axis is all or nothing or incremental delivery, right? These were the two things. We need to have customer value and we need to have incremental delivery. Okay, so if we have neither, that's the usually fails. That's a gamble. don't do that, please. The other one is what I talked about. This is when you have clear customer values, a very clear incentive to do it, and you can do it incrementally. What about then this one, when you have incremental delivery but no customer value? Well, in that case, what happens is you might succeed partially or even completely, but it's much, much harder. The reason it's much, much harder because you don't have a clear incentive, right? So Shopify had this really interesting strategy where they created a metric for, like they had this code metric that measured coupling between components, and that component coupling metric was out in their dashboards in the office. And then teams were basically motivated to get their own team's metric down. And that's how they basically split up the system into components. It was a monolith before. The risk with this one is, imagine that there is a financial crisis in the middle of this, and the CEO walks around and sees these dashboards and says, guys, you are wasting money on this stupid race. Let's not do that, right? That's the risk here. But in general, if you're in a very stable financial situation, you can pull this off. I don't recommend it, though. The other option is all or nothing with clear customer value. So you basically bet your company on rewriting it, on rewriting your software. Sounds like Netscape to me. I think this is usually going to fail. I haven't seen, like, I see the allure of having that. If it's a really small product, maybe it can work. But like your runway is too big. You need to spend too much upfront before you see value. Okay? So out of the two, the more important one is incremental delivery. That's the reason my YouTube channel is called Next Increment, because incremental delivery of value is always going to be important. Okay, so word on AI agents. I don't have as much time as I hoped I would have. So going back to this chart, my initial experience with AI slop was this. And for a long time, even 6 months ago, I was arguing about that in this very same talk. And then something happened. I was at this open space event, and it's open. It's for technical coaches like me. And there were two people there, Llewellyn Falco and Lada Kessler. These two people were magicians. I just couldn't believe the stuff that they did with AI. And they showed me that this is also possible. And that's crazy, right? I couldn't believe it. And then I kind of, and it was a mindset shift that helped them and then helped me also to get better at this. And I will talk about the mindset shift in a second. But first, my first reaction was, when I saw this, is, oh my God, my business is over. But then I realized, no, it's not over, because you still have that really, it's just that it's much, much more pronounced, right? We will always have legacy code. We will always need to fix it. And actually fixing legacy code with AI is much simpler than without it. So this is still true, which is good news for me, and good news for you because you didn't waste your hour of time. But there is also some really interesting things that you can do. And I really wanted to talk about this, but it's time is up. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say that I'm going to jump a couple of slides ahead. So we came up with a bunch of patterns that I wanted to talk about. But luckily, it was Lada who started collecting these patterns of how to effectively code with AI. I started adding my own. We created this website, Augmented Coding Web Patterns. You go there, There's over 40 patterns, and some of them are very specific to working with legacy code. And these are basically tricks you can use to make your AI agent more effective. The very important thing to note, and this is the only thing that I will tell you from all of the slides that I skipped, the trick is that you can't prompt your way to success here. What you need is EWAS. You need to set constraints around the AI to make it perform better, and that's what those patterns are mostly about. Thank you so much, and if you can, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. And yeah, I'm not sure if we have time for questions. We have? Okay, then I'm going to take a few questions, but I won't be in the speaker's corner right after this talk, but after, like during lunchtime, I will make sure to be there. So if you want to talk to me, come and talk to me, or anytime, really. I'm very bad at that pause thing. I don't walk up to people, but please feel free to walk up to me, okay? Any questions that I can answer now? So yeah. So if you're up against the competition and they get next to you, the important thing is that you can always stop rewriting because you have done it incrementally. You don't use the progress that you already did. So you can slow down the rewrite. You can ramp it up, and that's kind of going to be something that guides you there. All right. Thank you.